Welcome back to the ADVISORPRO podcast, the show for advisors, board members, and fractional leaders who want to massively impact the work they do with their clients. I'm your host, Colin Howes, and I am joined today by none other than someone who has spent his career at the intersection of growth strategy, governance, and innovation. Tom Doorley is the co-founder and chairman of Sage Partners. I'm a co-founder of Braxton Associates. I'm a trust advisor to CEOs, boards, and leadership teams in both startups and Fortune 500 companies. He's also got an author in value creating growth and a thought leader in how businesses can scale intelligently, govern wisely, and thrive in the face of constant change. Tom, it's wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much for coming along to the show, and welcome.
Hey, thank you very much, Colin. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Wonderful one. So, Tom, maybe the first question, this is all about building resilience. We've been through some crazy times this last few years. We had this thing in England called the pandemic. I'm not sure if you had it over in America.
Yeah, I recall that. Yes.
And so look, this resilience, I guess that we've all been through this, but one of the things that of course is coming down the line is that something that I think you've mentioned in your podcast yourself, your focus on growth, this resilience in terms of what's coming. I mean, what's your take on AI, for example, this kind of change in trajectory of business?
It will. And the trouble is right now is that we're in that space where we're playing with it, trying to figure it out, but we have no idea where it's going to go. And the one thing I worry about is that a lot of companies are going for the default use. The default use is to say, hey, let's see if we can do what we're doing now with fewer people, less resource. And I understand it can be a productivity boon and we need to do that. But the big hit is going to be when we can use it to find opportunity. How do we understand what our customers need better and serve them better? How do we redesign our products so that they work better? All those sorts of things I think ultimately are important. But it is current place difficult. I come from the professional services background, as obviously, and I've been in that business my whole life. And I recall that back in my Braxton days, the company that we merged into Deloitte, we had about, in our Boston office where I was, we had about 60 people. We had a lot of people at different layers. We had a group of kids, because they were out of undergraduate school, called BAs. And we had 15 of them. Today, we'd only need 5, right? And so the problem, or the challenge is that there are 15 opportunities for young people to start their careers, to learn how to do things, to grow, to listen to what we were doing, our more experienced folks, and learn from that. That's been circumscribed, not totally disrupted, but has certainly been limited. And how it is we use AI in a positive way to share our experiences with our younger folks, I think that's critical. We're not doing a very good job of it right now.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, a lot of stuff that I talk about with founders, focusing on revenue growth. There's only so many opportunities for cost reduction that we can have in any business. And let's face it, it's not. It could be fun, I'm sure, if you're that way inclined. But for people from a commercial background, it's all about revenue growth. So how can you use AI to identify, as you said, new opportunity to then push? That's the nirvana, surely.
Yeah, and we say, Tori, at Sage Partners, we have 2 groups of clients, sort of the mature companies that we help reignite growth, and the young companies that we help scale. And one of the things we say to the young companies is your point about revenues. Revenue. If you're not always thinking about how to generate revenue, you got a problem. Obviously, you got to worry about cost and all that sort of thing, and you got to turn profit and everything. But the important thing is, what are you doing to sell your product, to engage your customers, to thrill your customer? It's all about revenue. And problem is that a lot of young companies are founded by bright people with a great idea. And of course, the assumption is, well, it's a great idea, right? But the fact is, you have to tell me why it's a great idea and get me to buy your great idea. And if you don't do that, it can be fun, but not going to make it.
Absolutely. I mean, I have the wonderful opportunity to work across multiple verticals and looking at commonality of challenge coming down the line. You've got the kind of companies who have always done the same thing and will always try to carry on the same thing. And I'm lucky enough to live on the ocean here. And when I'm ducking around in the waves, every now and then a big wave is like, whoa, that's a big one. And sometimes you don't see it.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that wipe you out. If I look out the back window here, I've got wealth management companies everywhere over this side towards Bournemouth and over here towards Christchurch. I don't think they know what's coming.
Yeah, no, they don't.
So if they don't know what's going to happen, they're going to surely be, not only initially their staff going to be disrupted, but surely they're going to be disrupted out of existence by someone who's going to be a little bit more savvy in the use of the technology.
Well, here's something that is very relevant to that question, and which we're, I should say, teaching, but we're sharing with our clients, is that to say that you need right now, because who knows what's going to happen. So you need to try to figure it out. So you need to have people at the understanding what's going on and feeding it back and say, hey, we just ran into something we didn't anticipate. So we say you need two kinds of people. One of my partners was a former naval officer. And when he was on the bridge of a ship out the ocean and the fog rolled in, he called for help. He said, I need more lookouts. So I need more lookouts. So the lookout is there to find danger, to anticipate danger. And that's very needed. But you need somebody else. We call those people scouts. The scouts are the ones that have to find opportunity. They have to find things we could do differently, generate more revenue. And a lot of companies don't have, they sort of say they do, but they don't really have a commitment to that. And so when somebody comes back with a new idea, they say, well, we don't do that around here, right?
Yeah, we don't. Yeah.
Right, and that is dangerous. So we're saying that in order to figure out what is happening, and therefore what it means to us, and therefore perhaps what it will happen in the future, we need these two capabilities, and we need to build them into the organization. And both are important, right?
I totally agree. In terms of this resilience, then. I mean, we've, as founders, you're a founder yourself. You do this, on a full-time basis, as I do, in a great many different things as well. You've got to be resilient. Yeah. So how does resilience really surface? What are the key attributes of the founder or the leader that you're engaging with? What's their special sauce in your opinion?
Yeah, well, if I'm helping a young company, I try to test whether the leadership team has had any resiliency requiring experiences. When I'm hiring folks, right, particularly back in my days at Braxton and Deloitte Consulting, where we're hiring a lot of young people, I tested them to say, have you ever run into an issue that was difficult for you, that threw you back? How did you recover? And so I actually really test resilience. And so the best thing to do, right, is to have people on your team who are resilient because they've overcome problems. That's right. So what I look for is that you play on a team. Team sports to me are terrific. Metaphor for how it is you behave. I'm sure you're a football fan, right? And everybody has a plan. Then you get out on the pitch, the ball's kicked, and everything goes because something happens and you have a whatever, right? And you have to react to it. And particularly if the opponents score the first goal, well, that's devastating, right? So now what do? So I try to find out if there has been anything in the person's past that has generated resilience. Then, within the organization, a couple of things you have to do. One is you have to demonstrate resilience when something happens. And that's a matter of saying, whoops, we got a problem here. Here's what we're going to do to solve it. I gave you, way back in our Braxton days, we were hot shots and we were growing nicely and all that sort of thing. And so we decided that we would normally hire in these offices, sort of four folks per office. We decided we'd go for 10. So 10, we didn't think about. And 10 people said, yay, great. All of a sudden, we looked at 6 months down the road and said, oh my God, we can't put these people to work. We had a crisis. So we took one of our best guys, and what he did was outplace, before they actually came in, 6 of the people that we hired. And so that was us saying, look, we have a problem here. We're going to recover. So we're doing something pretty dramatic, taking a really good guy, not some, pardon the expression, guy who we have poached over there or tucked away over there in HR, right? We took a fellow off the line and did it, right? And so those sorts of things are indicators of how it is we're going to do. Then you have to keep communicating to say, you understand, you don't win every game, right? And you don't win every battle with every client when you're pitching, right? So you have to say what you do wrong and you have to recover from it. Yeah.
Exactly. And, I mean, certainly for me, in terms of sales experience, I'm used to rejection on a daily basis, right? And so for maybe people like us who are used to being client-facing or proposal-facing, certainly, having that, having the thing that you've worked on for maybe hours, days, weeks, even months, be thrown back and you say, this is garbage, this is no good. Yeah, it certainly builds a certain type of resilience. In terms of like your founder side of things, I come across all different types of founders, and of course the ones who are used to that pushback or used to having to build that resilience really, really fast. Yeah. They're the ones that got that, a little bit extra special sauce that potentially is going to lead to some kind of success. Yeah. And like you said, as an advisor to these guys, or certainly as coaching advisors who are then working with more of them. Yeah, I'm looking for that advisor to be digging into that founder and saying, as you said, who have you got on your team? If you're not the person, who are the experts in the room that are going to lead you through what inevitably is going to be some kind of pullback in your market? You can't keep going forward.
Yeah,
Look,
yeah.
Sorry, Chris.
Well, I'm going to pick up on your idea of this, because one of the things that's good for the leaders to remind the organization is you started here, and here's at our peak. Then we had a little bit of a drop back. Well, wait a minute. We're still way ahead of where we were. And
Right.
so it's important for the leaders to give perspective. And we're not cooking quite as well as we were back in the spring, but we are so where we started that I'm impressed with us.
Absolutely. Isn't it funny as well? Like, I guess we could go into culture and team culture, organizational culture there as well. It's as if, imagine the stock market just went up and up and up and up and up.
Sure.
Yeah, where's the fun in that? It'd
be nice, but it doesn't, right?
It would be nice, wouldn't it? Some crypto going up and up and up. But there's got to be a pullback. There's got to be that elasticity. Otherwise, how do you get to the next push? So that's, for me, being in organizations, I mean, big organizations, little organizations, you see the real culture when things go wrong, or when plan has come down a bit. And then everyone starts pointing at each other and saying, it was them. It was.
And you talk about things not always working. So I have a son who teaches at Stanford. It's something called the D School, which is about design of things and stuff. And he has this concept that says that we have to understand everything breaks, right? And so therefore, whatever it is you start with, you're going to have to fix it. And our institutions are very hard to do that. We're struggling right in the U.S. that we have a bloated federal government. We need to get it smaller, more efficient, and all that sort of thing. Boy, and it's hard. Once you put something in place, it's hard to recognize that it breaks. Yeah. Everything breaks. Now, some things are simple. You have a car, I have a car. If I have a rattle, I take it to the shop because they know that cars break. But a lot of people don't think about that there's something in the way their culture works or the way their strategy works that needs to be fixed. And that's hard. What do you mean? We started off doing this thing. What do you mean? If it didn't break totally, it needs substantial fine tuning, right? Yeah. But that takes a really interesting person and you know what? A really good advisor to point that out to him, right?
Absolutely. And I think we will have to accept as well that plans change. Things change. Things have to be fluid. A great philosopher, I'm not sure if you have heard of him, Mike Tyson. He was famously quoted as saying, "Everyone has a plan until I punch them in the face."
That's right. Yes, right.
That's life sometimes, right?
Oh, yeah, it is. But you have to start with an assumption that this is the best we know right now, so let's do it. And then as we do it, we'll make adjustments, mid-course corrections, or sometimes it's called pivots. On the other hand, if we're working with a young company that pivoted 4 times, we say, well, wait a minute, maybe you just don't have a thing, and you better start from scratch. Yeah.
You've been fortunate enough to coach and be an advisor to many people, like Fortune 500, venture-backed founders, etc. You have this incredible career. For hopefully someone will listen to this, but for anyone listening to this, what's the most impactful thing an advisor could do to guide their fledgling leadership teams through adversity and uncertainty?
I would say be honest. Another way of saying to be authentic. If you're going to have the ability to influence what somebody does, they have to trust you. Yeah. They're not going to trust you if you're not authentic. If you try to be somebody you aren't. And I have a great example of authenticity. So back during the COVID times, that thing we both remember, we did a little webinar helping companies understand how to reignite growth when they could. And the woman who was in charge of a small company, King Arthur Baking, 400 people, so that she would gather people together on Zoom every other week and she'd talk to them about what's going on and what they're doing. If somebody raised a question that she couldn't answer, as opposed to trying to get, pardon the expression, some bullshit answer, she would say, I don't know. Tell you what, the next time we're together, I'll give you the best answer I can. It may not be the full answer, but I don't know that, so the next time we're together. And so it encouraged people to say when she said something, they actually believed her. And so I would say that and these days, we don't have the pyramid to feed, right? We're all senior people, so we don't have to worry about work for the 20-year-olds and all that sort of thing. We can do what it is we want to do. And if we don't have a client who's willing to listen, they don't, by the way, they don't have to pay it. They don't have to do everything we say. because sometimes they have a better idea than we had. That's okay. But they have to be able to listen. And I have to be able to talk to them in an honest way. I had a client not too long ago, and we eventually walked away from him, where it was a he, just couldn't deal with the fact that his business had changed and he needed to do some things differently. And I tried and tried and tried, and I found a way to get to him through a side door, and it worked out okay. But it was just too frustrating. It was just too frustrating. And so that you have to be authentic, and they have to be willing to accept what might be called the hard truth.
Absolutely. Otherwise, what's the point? So in some of the founders that I still coach, or I'm on their advisory panel, or the vast majority, I consider them friends. Because we've had some tough conversations.
Yeah.
And we've had the kind of 11 o'clock on a Friday night tough conversation, or the 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning tough conversation. There's enough trust there to be able to say, hey, look, I think you're screwing this up, and this is why. And it's really, really, really important. So I guess trust, truth, integrity, just being able to really deliver a tough message.
You and I are both advisors, and so this comes from a biased perspective. Advisors are really important, particularly if you're in a young company and you don't have a formal board of directors. You got to have at least an informal board of advisors. I've done that throughout my career. I've had people I've been able to call up and say, hey, what do you think of this? And they were friends. Normally they were older than me with more experience and all that sort of thing. But every young company, every founder ought to have people like you, like me, that they can call and ask questions. Ultimately, as things go along, they'll be willing to pay us, right? As opposed to just sort of taking us to dinner or buying us a cup of coffee, right?
You'll be lucky.
Yeah, you know as well as I do that if you have some skin in the game, geez, I'm paying this guy something, I'm going to pay attention, right? Or I'm not going to use it. I'm going to say, forget about it, go away, right? It's easy to give away our advice, but I've never been able to figure out how to do that effectively.
Well, I was going to ask you this exact question. How do you do that? I mean, for me, I guess when I'm coaching new advisors, I try to help them by stacking and offering layers of their service.
Yes.
So that they never actually turn away. They can focus on the type of company that they want, but they can also then target the stage of maturity of company they want with different offers. So right at the very top, it could be the free pro bono advisory, board advisory thing, and then we get to fractional, and we get down to joint ventures, and that kind of thing. So it's a tough one, and I'm asked that question most every time.
But which I tend to use, and we tend to use the free piece as a way to get to know the client, to say, listen, spend a little time together. You give them some feedback, and they say, well, that's pretty interesting. Before we go into a paid engagement. But it is right. They have to be willing to listen, and they have to be ultimately willing to pay you. Otherwise, they're not going to take you. So I'm working now with a young company, and we're getting to the point where he's going to have to start paying. It's been lunches and all that sort of thing. And we'll see if he can do it. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're doing pretty well, by the way. So sometimes you're doing really well, then you're in this, well, hey.
Well, I hope they're listening to this at some point. They're expecting the invoice.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
So Tom, look, you've also got a podcast. You also do a lot of work around navigating the fog of change.
Yes.
You built frameworks around that where people can navigate complexities.
Right. The basic framework, and in my first episode, we showed it. But we're obviously, as we're doing more work with more people, we're changing a little bit. But the basic idea is it says that in order to deal with this, the leader has to have what we call a change agenda. And that is some way to come up with 5 things, whatever, but a small number of things, one sheet of paper, which is what we're worrying about. So that when something happens, you can say, no, that's not one of the 5 things we're worried about. Forget about it, right? And so it keeps the organization focused. The trick is you learn because of what's going on, and those 5 things are going to change. So you have to say, these 5 things are the best 5 things we think we can stay focused on now. But if some field salesman realizes that, the competition's just come up with something we never thought of, or some software developer said, if I just do this, that, and the other thing, much better, we're going to be able to adjust. But it's a matter of bringing sort of structure and focus to what is very noisy. There's a simple little thing we do we call readiness to see if there's readiness to change. And one of the things we look at is, you're familiar with the word cloud?
Yeah.
Well, if you take a look at most companies and you generate a rogue cloud, it is really noisy. So there's all kinds of things there. And so you say, well, wait a minute, which of these is most important? There can't be 20, 30 of them that are most important. And so we start with a little readiness assessment, and then we figure out how to generate what is the starting point for the leaders' change agenda. But yes, we do have a framework.
I love that. Fantastic. That's fascinating. And so I guess then with these frameworks, you're trying to help the founders put some kind of governance, compliance, that layer in so that they can processize system-wise.
Yeah. Some way to have, and again, this goes with the advisors. A lot of young companies don't yet have a formal board, so they need a group of advisors that can help them. But when they have a formal board, then they need the board to be able to be helpful enough.
Yeah.
To be able to give them input, to say, gee, are you sure you're doing the right thing there? And so they need to be very careful. And on the board, there ought to be these scouts and lookouts. That if somebody that is sort of just naturally a pain because they're always worrying about risk, that's okay. Right? There are danger people. We need somebody who says, keep throwing up flags. Wow, did you think of this? Did you think of that? Right? And so we need scouts and lookouts from the board level as well.
I think I need that in my business. One of the guys I work closely with, he said, Colin, every time I join a call with you, you've created something new. And I can't keep up with the same 5 times. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, I apologize. But this...
If they had a leaders change agenda, Colin, they could say, does this one fit with what we're doing now? Or is it a big enough thing that we need to make an adjustment? Right.
Exactly. What I've realized, Tom, is that I'm a good leader. I'm a terrible manager. I'm a good doer.
Well, no, that's right. So there is a difference between being the CEO and the advisor to the CEO. And that's okay. That's actually good because you can bring ideas, we can bring ideas free necessarily of all the intricacies of the implementation of them. And then it's up to the CEO to sort the potatoes there and say, yep, we can do well with this, not with that sort of thing. So I'm actually, oddly enough, I'm a leader, but it's a small organization. We're 20 people, 20 partners. But I've been leaders of larger organizations. My Braxton organization was larger than when I was part of Deloitte Consulting. That was larger. So I've done that. And now I'm very comfortable being an advisor, helping people listen to me, making a good argument for why it's something they should do, and then helping them figure out, well, is it working? If not, how to tweak it. Yeah.
Well, Tom, I'm sure all of your clients are very, very fortunate to have you, and I'm absolutely honored to have you on the podcast. I really, really appreciate it. Just maybe one, maybe a couple of final things, if I may. I know we've maybe gone over time.
That's all right.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard work talking for a living, right? It's hard work. It's kind of like Nevada in many ways, as in you get to have conversations and get paid for them. There's a few things that I try to do to stay sharp and mentally focused, physically focused, etc. What do you do? And what kind of advice would you give to fledgling advisors, people looking to start their career?
For the advisors as opposed to the people they're advising?
Yeah, for the advisors.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things is. One is, it's worth trying to find other advisors who you think are doing a good job and figuring out how they're doing it. So podcasts are one way to do that. Reading books and all that sort of thing are another way to do that. So you can say, if somebody's actually doing this thing, how are they doing it and what can I learn from? But of course, I have to do it in my own space, in my own way. And I think sort of having a high level of curiosity is important. You got to listen to people on all spectrums, right? People who are, left or right, whatever. People who are the risk people who are the opportunity people, because you don't want to get either trap. And so I think sort of finding examples, learning from them, and yourself being really curious. And anytime you're advising a company, do what you can to really know what they're doing. So there's some offline investment, as you know, right? There's sort of the time you can charge them for it because you're working with them. But there's a time getting ready for the time you're going to charge them for. And sometimes you can't charge for all of that. But it's really important. So, for example, we have a client that has a really interesting new concept in what's called reality gaming. Without going through the details, it's called Bodeborg, a Swedish company. It's expanded. And they have an office or a venue here in Boston. I met with them. I went to the venue and I went through it and did their thing. It's called questing. You go from room, you do challenges, all that kind of stuff. So I understood what the thing was, right? So it's that sort of thing. So if you're going to be a good advisor, you have to also relate to what it is the company you're advising, the leaders you're advising are actually doing. And you have to know it well enough so you're comfortable in that space. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. I mean, I totally agree with all that. the thing I try to say to new advisors is almost like be the puppy dog, be excited, be interested, like sniff out new things, like ask questions, and this big wave of technology that we've got, if you're a technologist at heart, wow, we're living through this incredible thing. Might as well make the most of it, right? Hey, Tom, thank you so much for insights, all of your experience. Anyone listening, I hope there's maybe a few people listening, I hope so.
Well, that's the idea, Colin. That's the idea.
I know, right?
You got the idea, right, yeah.
If you found it useful, please share it with another advisor, another leader.
I do that all the time. Every time I'm on a podcast, I repost it, I send it around, all that sort of thing. Yeah, so just let me know when it's coming out, and I'll get prepared to do a little marketing for you. Or for us.
Oh, wonderful.
For us. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll just finish off. Like this is our Advisor Pro podcast, and we're trying to help everyone massively impact the work everyone does with their clients. Thank you, and au revoir.